Most definitely. Thank you very much, Mike Kagunga. And as he says, the next steps of ODM will shape that future. But what are the steps that ODM should take? Getting more insights on this, we're joined by Dismas Mukua. He is a political risk analyst. Good evening, Mr. Dismas. Just straight off what Winnie Odinga is mentioning, alleging the plot to sell the party. And I'd ask you this, well, following the death of Raila Amolo Odinga, do you think that the party is struggling to find an anchor?
Well, actually, the party is in, it's a Tower of Babel. The party is struggling because it's now very clear that the glue which was holding ODM together is Mr. Raila Odinga. In fact, you can say that Mr. Raila Odinga and ODM are synonymous, that one cannot exist without the other. And it's very clear that either by omission or commission, Mr. Raila Odinga ensured that there was no succession strategy. That is why all the top leadership of ODM, they speak and they claim to be stating the party position. And it appears like there are three groups. There is a group which supports the broad-based administration. Okay. There's another one which does not support the broad-based administration. Right. And then there's another group which is seated at the fence, waiting to see how the wind moves. Right. And in my view, any member of ODM who says that they want to respect Mr. Raila Odinga's legacy ought to support the broad-based administration. Because it's Mr. Raila Odinga who took the initial step to have a conversation with President William Samoei Ruto and said, let's have a broad-based administration for the sake of stability of Kenya. Now, if you claim that you are loyal to Mr. Raila Odinga, if you claim that you respect his legacy, and then you are going against his wishes, then it means that you may be pursuing your own selfish interest, which may not be aligned to Mr. Raila Odinga. But again, this opens a Pandora's box, because with the exit of Mr. Raila Odinga, for the first time now we are going to have a meritocracy in Mr. Raila Odinga's strongholds, especially in Nyanza. There are a number of bright politicians who would be suffocated by Mr. Raila Odinga. You can talk of Mr. Okoth Obado, you can talk of Dr. Evans Kidero, or even Odoyo Widi. These are politicians, because they were not dancing to Mr. Odinga's drum beats, they were suffocated. In fact, I can dare say that during the next primaries in Nyanza, everything is going to be anchored on meritocracy. So if you're not a solid guy, probability of winning an elective position is almost zero.
Do you foresee that some of these leaders that you're mentioning start dancing to the tune of the new party leader, Oburu Odinga? On Friday, you remember the whole, grandiose ceremony that was there, even him being handed the whole spear and the showcase that was there. Do you foresee some of these leaders starting to dance to what he is mentioning? Remember also when Odinga talking about the NDC, but Oburu Odinga said that no, this won't be happening. We will solve this in-house.
Well, ODM has got some heavyweights, and the people who fall in that category includes Mr. John Mbadi, Hassan Joe, and Oparanya. Those are the heavyweights who've got capacity and competence to take ODM to the next level. Then you've got another group which says, wait a minute, we are not sure of what Mr. Raila Odinga, we are not sure of his conversation with Ruto. So it appears, if you look at, if you want to run a political party, first of all, you must have the political capital. Okay. And Mbadi, Joe, and Oparanya seem to have that political capital to take the party to the next level. And when Mr. Odinga joined President Ruto, there was the 10-point agenda. And these ODM heavyweights have indicated that they're going to work with President Ruto so long as the 10-point agenda is going to be implemented. And then in 2027, they're going to review their position. And then at the same time, they're saying the only reason why ODM is in existence is to look for political power. All right. And they can get political power either by going alone or forming a coalition. But a gentleman called Sam Atandi has come out times above number and said, as he sees ODM today, they don't have a credible candidate. But guess what? Sam Atandi is facing opposition from the status quo politicians whose modus operandi is just to go to the streets. But you see, majority of the ODM, the top leadership are saying, wait a minute, it's not time for us to go to the streets. And in my view, ODM now should set an example to all Kenyans by embracing meritocracy. Because if you don't have a meritocracy, then political parties in Kenya will have no value. You may be aware that a gentleman called Sam Nyamoya started the Kisi Kuria Professionals Group that wants to ensure that meritocracy is embraced during the political parties' primaries. And in my view, this is something which needs to go across the nation. You realize when you watch conversations or debates at the National Assembly and Senate, some of the members, the kind of contributions, they just make your jaws to drop to the ground. You begin to wonder, do these guys really know what they're talking about? Now, under Mr. Raila Odinga, meritocracy in many parts of Nyanza was sacrificed, because the moment he looks at you and he endorses you, you're going to win a political seat with or without meritocracy. But right now, there's that room for meritocracy. And in my view, Raila being a Pan-Africanist, we should now use Kenya as a template for the entire region.
However, some of these young members of parliament are feeling left out. To remember what Babu was saying, this might be his last remarks, as well as even Sifuna, Nairobi Senator. And it speaks also to the leadership of the party at the moment. Oburu Odinga, what do you read into his leadership and his stewardship to 2027?
Well, you know, in my view, Dr. Oburu Odinga has just taken a position, not because of his leadership capacity, but because of the DNA within the Jaramogi Odinga family. And in my view, time has come in Kenya whereby you're not going to assume a leadership position simply because you are related to the party leader, but you must demonstrate capacity and competence. That is what Kenyans are looking for. You know, we are not a monarchy like the UK, so that if your father was king and then, no. People should be looking at capacity and competence. And in my view, all Kenyans, whether or not you are a member of ODM, provided you are a taxpayer, and ODM is funded by taxpayers, everybody should develop an interest in ODM, so that anybody who is going to be elected as a leader within ODM, it's not because of your DNA, it's because of your capacity and competence.
Right.
If you do not have capacity and competence, then you need to take a back seat. And for some people within ODM, if they think that the party is not taking care of their interest, selfish or otherwise, they should actually take a template from Mr. Raila Odinga. You remember at some stage he stormed out of Ford Kenya and he started NDP. So if there's any politician within ODM today who feels like the leadership is not giving him a good deal, who feels that they're being mistreated, then it's time for them to go and form a political party. And guess what? Forming a political party in Kenya requires heavy political capital and heavy financial resources. I doubt many of the people who are giving threats have got those two capacities.
All right. And speak of which, during this particular celebrations, Dr. Oburu Odinga had stated that in 2027, we will decide whether to join a coalition or go to elections as ODM party. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. And right now, I want us to listen to what Nandi Senator Cherargei had talked about when it comes to also the political marriage of ODM as well as UDA when it comes to the broad-based government. Beforehand, Dr. Oburu Odinga had talked about the possibility of ODM having the deputy party seated nothing below that as well. But this is what Nandi Senator Cherargei had to say about that.
Niliona watu wengine wakiongea wakisema ati in case tukienda negotiation na broad base, sisi tuko broad base, lakini kuna viti mbili hatuwezi ongelea kwa coalition, President William Ruto na Professor Kithure Kindiki. I want to tell them waombe zile viti vingine mpaka ya mzee ameta. Lakini tukienda any negotiation in building a coalition going into the future of 2027 to 2032, the Deputy President of His Excellency Dr. William Ruto is Professor Senator Kithure Abraham Kindiki, kwa sababu ya shukrani yetu kwa kusimama na kijana yetu Rais William Ruto. So I want to tell wenzangu, kama ni wale tuko broad base, kama ni wale wanataka tufanye kazi pamoja, viti yote mbili ya juu ya rais na deputy shaenda. So jipange, labda waombe ile ya kanisa ama sijui ya gani, but they should watafute ingine, kwa sababu hii yako ni assured.
Dismas, there's already backlash and that opposition from some of the members from UDA when it comes to the possibility of ODM getting high-level seats come 2027. What political events do you foresee when it comes to the run-up to the 2027 elections and this political marriage going forward?
One suspects that as we approach 2027, President Ruto's sole intention is to get a second term. And the second term, there are many permutations and combinations. And you know, President Ruto said last evening that he's a founder member of ODM. So the probability does in fact exist that Ruto may end up being the ODM candidate. He can decide to tell Kenya Kwanza or UDA that let's go back home. In any event, the top leadership of Kenya Kwanza, all of them are, founder members of ODM or Pentagon. You can talk about Musalia Mudavadi, who was a Pentagon member. So the probability does exist that that Ruto could actually be an ODM candidate. And in my view, what is going to happen is for them to look at the permutations and combinations and look at the numbers. But for the gentleman who has just spoken, you'd recall that during the time of President Moi, you had Kariuki Chotara, Mulu Mutisia, and Sharif Nassi, who are used to test the waters. But what the senator has indicated, I think is, it just, we understand that in kingdoms you have those, the charlatans. People just come and speak issues because most of the time what Senator Cherargei says, you begin to wonder whether he has subjected his statements to any logic or he's just making populist statements which may even injure the UDA ODM relationship.
Should his remarks be taken lightly?
No. You can, for people who've got expertise in politics, you cannot take his remarks lightly because, again, the probability does exist that he's been sent as a messenger to go and test the waters. And another probability is that he's been on the extreme side. He just speaks. Don't you remember the other day, he made a statement and when he was cornered, he said, he reviewed his position. When he said, wait a minute, if Kenyans go to maybe Uganda or Tanzania and they make mistakes, he said something about Finya, and then you bring them to Malize. The normal meaning of Finya or letter to Malize, it means torture and killing. And his statements were unacceptable. But again, on that point, one has to give credit to Musalia Mudavadi and our ambassador Joash Mangi in Uganda for working the diplomatic channels to ensure that the Kenyans who were in that part of the world actually came back. But this gentleman called Cherargei, if he had a blank check, he had said Finya Wao and then later to Malize.
Okay.
And you see, this is somebody who has been elected to defend Kenyans' interest.
Right.
So while the statements appear reckless, but for political observers, you need to pay attention because it's probably a messenger.
Right. Top leadership of ODM, even as well as UDA, what would you advise them when it comes to the steps they need to take? First of all, for ODM, they'll be having their meeting March 2026. Again, as you had mentioned, the 10-point MOU, as well as even for 2027. What do they need to understand?
Well, there are two groups. Actually, three groups. There's one which is seated on the fence, but essentially there are two groups. There's one which believes that for you to effect change in Kenya is to go to the streets, and they keep on issuing threats every day that if you don't do this, if you don't deliver Y, we are going back to the streets. And then there's another group which says that we can sit down and have a conversation anchored by the 10-point agenda. And yesterday I saw, from the time Mr. Raila Odinga passed on, every single ODM member was being given the opportunity to speak. The party, the file, and the rank have said that we must respect Mr. Odinga's wishes. And Mr. Odinga and Ruto had entered into this broad-based administration anchored in the 10-point agenda. Right. And in my view, that is what should determine how the two parties make progress. Okay. But it appears that the people within the administration, they're referred to as experts. Yeah. All of them are agreed that the reason why ODM does exist is that they need to get political power. And you get political power by either winning an election or being part of a coalition that wins an election. Right. And it appears they're not very interested in the streets. So my view would be they need to go sit back and reflect and ask themselves, are they sick and tired of being in the streets every day,
Okay.
or they want to be parts of a group that forms the next administration.
Right. Thank you very much, Dismas Moko. He is a political risk analyst, and thank you very much for your time tonight. Kevin Orandi says Winnie is another Sluhu in the making, and Kipruto Dominic says if they're not careful, they might be celebrating the end of the party, thinking they're lifting it high.